There we go. And let's just check that is recording. Sorry, I just get this little, sometimes my view of things gets a bit bumped. There we go. Good. So welcome to this combination remedies talk and introduction to the Narayani Remedies. And these are a big part of my practice, both combination remedies and the Narayani Remedies. And like many homeopaths who graduated some, 15 to 20 years ago, we weren't really taught about combination remedies, and they're still not taught, as far as I know, at most of the main colleges. So they came for me as I think one brief lecture. I think I've literally got one side of A4 paper written about combination remedies from my undergraduate, anyway, my licentiate course, and it was just a kind of throwaway that we could be using these. Whereas when you go to other countries, combination remedies form the mainstay. So when you go into a pharmacy in France, Spain, or Italy, and you've got, a flu or an upset stomach, then you will usually be offered a combination remedy, which is a bit of an eyebrow raise if you've been taught single remedies, single polycrest remedies. So there are many groups of combination remedies, and I'm going to go through a few tonight, and I'm going to introduce some regular combinations that I use in my practice, that I've used for a long time, some of which I've created myself and some of which I've learned from others. So I use also in my practice, it's not really a bioresonance program, but it's very similar to a bioresonance program. It's built more on information, and it's called the Core Energetix program. And that is an amazing vehicle for me to learn about various combination remedies I've never even heard of. So oligo remedies, for instance, come up, and Sangiovese remedies that I know very little about their origins, are logged in the information in that computer program. So the ones I'm going to talk about tonight are ones that either are readily available or the information about them is readily available. And we want to talk about why we might use these in practice as well. So the top book, The Group Remedy Prescriber by Powell, is no longer available, unfortunately. But what I will do after the talk is I'm going to email you, obviously, a link to the recording, and I'm going to email you a few documents, including a full-length PDF from the Group Remedy Prescriber book. And I'll talk a little bit more about these in a minute, but these are just a few of my books on combination remedies. So why would we use combination remedies? When you go back to somebody like Priestman, she was using combination remedies in her practice because her practice was busy and because she wanted a fast solution to conditions that people were coming in with. So to label something joint pain, for instance, she put together pulsatilla and rustox in a 6C and said, if you can't work out what the remedy is, then just give this. Or if time's short, just give this. It will buy you some time before you find the similimum, the single remedy. So the other thing about combination remedies is that, like our first aid kits, they can be portable. So for instance, my Narayani Remedies tuck themselves neatly into a case that I can walk down the road with if I wanted to. So, some of these combination remedies were developed because the prescribers were on the hoof and they were prescribing over a wide distance and needed to be able to carry a lot of remedies with them. Now, those of you that are used to using single remedies, needing them in lots of potencies, you know that kit, that pharmacy becomes quite heavy. So combination remedies can be portable. And they can be openers for complex cases. And this is where I would say I spend the vast amount of time prescribing combination remedies is as openers for complex cases. So particularly in this day and age when there are all sorts of things that stand in the way of our prescribing and we might not be able to see what they are yet. So by that I mean things like pesticide residue, chemicals, perhaps hormones, synthetic hormones, things that complicate the case for us, things that mask the case, mainstream medication, recreational drugs. Might be layers and layers of these things that stand in the way, and what we're looking for is something which is more akin to a herbal detox or something like that. Or it might be that we are looking for a therapeutic. So we're looking for something like a headache therapeutic or a sleep combination, something that can help the client achieve a level of respite from their conditions while we're dealing with the main part of the case. Can use them as in a detox kind of way. So there are many combinations that we can use in this way. And some of you might have used things like Nux 6X in the morning, Sulfur 6X in the middle of the day, Nux 6X mid-afternoon, and Sulfur 6X in the evening as a nice little January detox, for instance. Or after a period of intense study, you might use something like combination tissue salts, the phosphorus tissue salts. So we'll look at some of these a bit later. But we can use combination remedies for a particular effect, and detox is common. Detox is something that people often come in saying they want to achieve. So canalization, the idea of using combination remedies and other types of remedies outside of our polycrest remedies to direct the effects of our chosen remedy. So we have a chosen polycrest remedy, and we might be doing well in a case, and we could add in these types of remedies to help direct that. Or we might have a condition, say something like herpes, which is hard to shift, and a combination remedy can be used in the background to address that condition while we're prescribing for the case as a whole. So another instance is to direct the effects of other CAM therapies. So these are I don't know how many complementary and alternative therapists there are in the audience outside of homeopaths, but these combination remedies are great to have in your toolkit to use alongside your practice. What I noticed when I was in a busy multidisciplinary practice in my early days of working, the early 2000s, were that an awful lot of my colleagues were sending their clients off to the GP to get something like antibiotics for a case, and not driving them to our drop-in therapeutics clinic, acute clinic that we had, us homeopaths held. So educating others, these are a great tool to show others how we can use homeopathy in everyday situations and perhaps bring people into homeopathy. So these are the types of things that bring people into homeopathy, rather than the other way around, a single remedy that may or may not work for somebody. How many people turn up in your practice and say, I tried homeopathy once and it didn't work for me? You know, maybe this type of remedy is a way to get people into practice. So we can use combination remedies for long-term regeneration, where an organ or tissue has broken down, is no longer functioning as well as it should. Many combination remedies are low potency, i.e. they have a gentle approach. They're not all though, some are quite high potency. And when I first started using the Narayani Remedies, I was a bit cautious about some of the combinations until I understood what their intention was, and I could see their effect through clinical observation practice. So we can use this type of remedy as well for depleted states, in the same way that we might use the layers method, where we're approaching a pathology with low potency. So deplete and frequent repetition. So depleted states, sensitive states, and they often give us easy access to sarcodes. So I'm going to talk through the combination remedies that use sarcodes. Some are just mixes of polycrests, and some are mixes of sarcodes, and some are a mixture of both polycrest and sarcode. So these types of remedies as well can support nutritional take-up. So again, you know, a naturopath, a nutritionist could be using these alongside their supplemental therapy. And what we get from a combination remedy is the benefits of synergy. When we put together more than two elements or more, we have a synergistic effect, much like we do when we blend aromatherapy oils. And they can also be affordable. So one of my things for families is to make accessible, to encourage people to have a kit, perhaps to encourage people to have a few combination remedies in accordance with whatever conditions they have in their family. So the remedies that I mentioned, first of all, there were the Powell Remedies. Now, Eric Powell was a homeopath and a herbalist. So he had these two disciplines, and he put together the idea of herbalism, which is usually blends of herbs, in the homeopathic context. So what you'll find with the Powell Remedies is generally low potency remedies. They actually go up to, I think some may go up to 30 Cs, and they can be mixes of certain X's and C potencies. So you'll find a combination remedy, it might not just be all 3 X's, it might be a mixture of 3X, 6X, 8X, etc. And what he generally has is polycrest remedies in combination. So the remedies that we know and love, 140 odd of them in combination. And they are presented in his book, which, as I say, I've got a PDF of. I'll forward that to you. They're presented as an A to Z of therapeutics, and there are some 64 combinations. They generally, in their intention, are to support weak organs and to normalize or balance organ and glandular function. And then there are codes available for a radionic remedy machine. So I've made a little note because that particular code book goes with the McGurk radionics machine that I'll talk about in a bit. I will copy those potencies into a document and send that out to you as well. So you could make these combination remedies on a radionics machine because the codes exist. And they are the only range of codes in relation to combination remedies that I personally will use. So Dr. Reckeweg combinations are still available. And at the end of this, I'm giving you a list of suppliers. I'll send that out to you. You can easily get hold of the Dr. Reckeweg combinations. And again, these tend to be low C potencies, up to 30 C. So for those of you that aren't homeopaths, the X suffix or the C suffix on a remedy, if you are abroad, you might see D, or you might see CH, but in England we use the suffixes X. So you'll see something like 6X or 30C. These particular, that denotes the potency, the strength of the remedy, the depth of its action. And the Dr. Reckeweg, low C potencies up to 30 C. Combinations of our polycrests with a few sarcodes mixed in. You tend not to see the nosodes in the combination remedy mixes. So these, again, intention is to support weak organs, normalize organ and glandular function, and these are described for their therapeutic action. So you'll get immune system support, or you'll get liver gallbladder support, and there may be a whole range of these in relation, for instance, to an organ like the liver. So do, always with these types of remedies, read the label and see what their intention is and prescribe for the intention, perhaps before moving sideways into other organs. So I personally never change the potency of the combination remedies because I haven't yet got to that stage, even though I've been using things like the Narayani Remedies for 15 years. I've never got to that stage of thinking, wonder what this is like in a different potency, because they seem to work very well in the potencies that they were designed with. So I'm not saying don't, obviously. I'm just saying I've never had to do that. So great range, readily available. And why sarcodes? Why would we introduce sarcodes? We have very few of these in our repertory, so it is difficult for us to come to the conclusion that a sarcode is needed when we haven't got that information in our repertory. So it does require us to learn about sarcodes, and there are some brilliant teachers. I'd recommend Hilary Dorian and Peter Joyce. They both have huge knowledge in sarcodes. And there are very few that we know as standalone remedies, but we have two that jump out for me. Another one I'm just thinking about it is thyroidinum. So remedies that are either the organ or the secretion of an organ. So folliculinum, thymus gland, cortisone, thyroidinum. Those types of remedies are sarcodes. And so we have few of those that are standalone remedies. But those of you that have been in practice for some time will know that these remedies are becoming more common for us to use. So a remedy like euphorhinum has more therapeutic indications now than it had. And I think this is because we are becoming increasingly complex, organs are becoming weaker, and we are exposed to more environmental and food factors that affect those organs more directly. So an organ like the thyroid, which is directly affected by radiation, by fluoride in the water, by glyphosate in the food chain, suddenly needs an awful lot more remedies for it than we have in some of our older repertories and our older materia medica. And that organ is almost definitely going to need a sarcode at some stage in terms of its treatment. And it may need other isopathic remedies or tautopathic remedies, for instance, in order to bring back its strength and full function. So sarcodes as well can help canalize or direct the effects of an indicated remedy. And I would say this is where I really had my introduction to sarcodes. So I, moved from prescribing something like sepia into anterior pituitary, for instance. So that remedy sarcodes might direct the effects of an indicated remedy or be sequential to that, complementary to that. So canalization as well, sarcodes can also help with nutritional take-up. For instance, in supplements and mainstream medicine, we might compare thyroxine, which is synthetic, to pig's thyroid. So we're comparing synthetic to the organic. We might actually compare pig's thyroid as a supplement to organic pig's thyroid. I took a case today where the person was specifically taking organic pig's thyroid, which she'd managed to get from Germany, generally not available in the UK. So sarcodes are becoming increasingly popular, I think, in our practice for very good reason. So to support, strengthen, repair a weak organ. So the heal remedies take this even further, and they take the conversation into an almost allopathic conversation, where you've got remedies for very specific purposes, and there are hundreds of these. I've used a few. If you can get hold of this book, it's the index of all of them, I think. A huge long list, but a fantastic therapeutic manual, a little bit like going into the BNF. So a very 20th century approach, 21st century approach, you can see that they go up to a higher strength than the previous combination ranges that we've looked at. They are a combination range that uses nosodes. So definitely as you get into, combination remedies, you want to be reading the label. Huge range, many conditions. And what their intention is as a link between mainstream medicine and homeopathy. So they call their range, heal, homotoxicology, and the most well-known of these is Trawmeal. Trawmeal, either as tablets or as a cream, is commonly available all over Europe for first aid, basically, first aid trauma combination. So very much designed to be used over several months, and they are designed with that intention, whereas some of the other ranges might just be for a short period of time in terms of their intention. And these come in pills, liquids, sprays, and some are even injected. So I don't know anything about that side of it myself. I personally wouldn't feel particularly comfortable with that, but certainly if you're moving from mainstream medicine or a chiropractic approach, that might be something that's much more part of your remit in terms of using combination remedies. So a huge science backing these incredible remedies. And I'd say I use some of them occasionally, but I'm very much somebody that doesn't move outside what I'm using unless, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm very happy with the remedies that I'm using at the moment. But I'm introducing some today that I've never used, but I see myself maybe as using in the future. So I'll come on to those in a bit. But new Vistas are a wonderful range. I have several of these myself. These resonate for me. So it's important that what you move into has resonance for you. I particularly like the new Vistas. I always have. And as you can see from this image here, they can support particular things. So we've got remedies to support the blood as an organ, or we've got remedies to support calcium take-up, for instance, or the bone as an organ. So specific detoxes, and the heal range covers some of this as well, but the new Vistas has a huge side of it, which is specific for our 20th and 21st century issues. So if you're looking to detox from heavy metals, from chemicals, from radiation, asbestosis, you've got an amazing range of remedies here, and you've also got the targeted organ supports that I talked about. So readily available. They've got a good website you can browse through. And like many of these, they have practitioner schemes, and you need to be a registered practitioner to order them. So I believe you might have to be with the Reckeweg as well. It's a while since I've ordered those. So they will, as a company, I think you can get these sent out directly to your clients as well. So the idea of a practitioner scheme is an affiliate or practitioner scheme where you are registered with the company, and you may get a discount on these yourself, and you may be able to offer a discount code to your clients. And it may be that you get a kickback as an affiliate. So I'm into this. I'm into looking at income streams that work for me. I'm into looking at building relationship with companies that have ethics that align with my own. So that's something that might be a new concept to you, or it might be something that you're very adept at. But do think about that, particularly those of you that are qualified. You might have to wait until you're a qualified practitioner, but definitely, you know, make inquiries. You might be able to be covered by your student insurance as well in terms of prescribing. So this is an interesting range. These what came out of New Zealand. Really great information sheets with these, and these you can see from a couple of them there on the front. These are to support organs, and the focus with these Energetix pure formulas is to support an under-functioning organ, or to balance an over-functioning organ. So that's their approach, and I'm going to show you a few combinations. Just they've got some great PDFs that come with these, so you can see what's in them and why they're putting those ingredients in them, which is always good. You know, always be asking yourself with the combination remedies, be curious about why a particular remedy is in that combination, because sometimes they're a surprise and you're, why is that there? And you might have to prescribe it or think sideways before you come to the point where you understand why something's in there. You know, it's taken me years to know as much as I do about the Narayani range that I tend to work with, but there's always more to learn. So I have a small amount of these. I don't have the whole range at all, but I really like them. Particularly like things like the rehydration drops, the thyropath and thyrocord for balancing the thyroid. So let's have a look at what's in these. So the thyrocord, for instance, is formulated to assist specifically with clearing toxins deep within the cellular matrix of the thyroid gland. And since we've just heard that the thyroid gland is affected by at least 3 quite kind of toxic elements, radiation, fluoride, and glyphosate, the thyroid might need a bit of attention, as do many of the glands in the body. So a range like this, phenomenal application for us. Metals, chemicals, and viruses that have an affinity for fatty tissue, and the very location of this gland in the throat So we bypass it with food, exposed to radiation very close to where we use our cell phones, etc. Sitting looking at the screen for the whole of this year, etc. Might need a remedy like thyrocord. So thyrocord, these are spagyrically processed herbs and drainage remedies. So it's a particular way of processing, and then these are made, these are homeopathic. So let's have a look at what we've got in these. You'll see these are X potencies, and some of them go up to a 200X here. So Coxsackie nosode, you know, at some stage this has been associated with the thyroid. Dental nosodes, of course, the thyroid is right next to all that dentistry that we've had. You know, have you got amalgam fillings? Have you got heavy metals very close to the thyroid? Traditional remedies here, like calcarb, spongia. Less so something like pulsatilla. So I'm curious, why is pulsatilla in there in relation to the thyroid? Not one of my major thyroid remedies, but thyroidinum, yes. Pyrogen, very interesting to see that in there. The thyroid looks after, or it draws up iodine. The function of iodine in the system is to help us deal with, it's a part of our immune function. So is this why pyrogen's in there? I've got questions about what's in here and why is it in here, but fantastic combination. And here's the rest of the mix. So you can see quite extensive, lots of things in it. Are there associations between vaccination nosodes and rubella and the thyroid? Krebs cycle. These are things, you know, Krebs cycle is an interesting one to make as a remedy to stimulate cell metabolism, because the thyroid is so much role in relation to our metabolism. So some great solutions and some questions there. Now, Nelson's used to sell these. They are available online. You'd need to ask whether Nelson still sells them. If there's anyone in the audience who works at Nelson's and can let us know, I'm not sure they do, but that's certainly where I bought mine from. So here's another one, lymph tone. Great remedies in here for toning the lymph. Rehydration drops, love these. I haven't shown you the whole PDF because I'm not focusing on just these, but some really great remedies here. This is very much about adrenal fatigue. You know, if the thirst is disordered, hugely thirsty, or we're not hydrating enough, points to adrenal fatigue or going in that direction. So a great remedy if you know you're exhausted. That's the rest of the combination there. Interesting, because it's got the hypothalamus and the thyroid in there, as well as the adrenal conversation. So we've got that pathway in that. I'll just flip back. Can you see that combination there? You've got some great little notes there as to where you might use this. Homeobotanicals, some of you in the audience might use these. These are very popular at the moment, and I don't use these. I have lots and lots of colleagues that do, and one day when I'm grown up, maybe I will graduate. But I had a lovely communication with Debbie about these, and these combine the herbs and homeopathy, much like Powell was after at the beginning of in the 1930s. And these are blends of organic herbs, interesting distinction that we might want to make, in liquid form, diluted, potentized homeopathically, and selectively chosen to target specific organs and or systems in the body. So much the same, but definitely working from organic herbs, some of which are specifically grown in the UK as well. And a relatively recent 1984, after years of experimentation and observation by Dr. Brian Murphy. And the first port of call with these is detox. First detox, then see what the system really needs in terms of nutrifying tonics. And like all of the others that we've looked at, these can be used for acute and chronic conditions. So I don't think I said that at the beginning, but most of these combination remedies could be looking at acute or long-term situations. Debbie Kerslake is the representative for these in the UK, and I asked her what her favourites were. So these are some of her favorites. HB is just the abbreviation for Homeobotanicals. And, you know, for instance, she said, you know, if we've got inflammation in the system, there is a herbal, so it's a homeopathic version of turmeric for inflammation, or there's a trauma combination for soft tissue repair. So really great contemporary approach. And obviously one thing you've got with these is these are being continually developed because they're a contemporary range, whereas the Powell range are a static range. They're not going to change. They're just as they were. And we need to try and find the access the information to those. Whereas something like this reminds me of the Australian bush flower essences compared to the batch flower essences. These are an ongoing contemporary conversation, and that might be more resonant for us. And onto the Narayani Remedies. This is a picture of Swami Narayani and Swami Ananda. And they worked together very closely for many years in hugely busy clinics and brought through the Narayani Remedies. So I just thought I'd introduce a little bit here in terms of the history. And Norma Gillies was born in, just going to let someone in, was born in 1924. And she was introduced into homeopathy at 37 and started to run free clinics, providing a health service for the very poor in South Africa. And later, she actually started to work at administrative level and later trained in homeopathy and met Swami Ananda, who she spent many years working with. And she said, where there's a clinic, there's a crowd. And she wrote in 1988 that the need was such that mixtures were introduced to save time and serve more people. So this is something that I think is true of all of the combination remedies that we've looked at, is that there is an element of service here. There's an element of designing something to meet the need of many people, to meet the need in an affordable way, to meet the need in an accessible way. So very contemporary. And when myself and several colleagues ran the clinics at Grenfell, we started out with combination remedies. We started out with not just combination remedies, but also remedies that had a printed label rather than our own handmade pharmacy. So we needed that in order to gain some kind of accreditation in the space that we were working in, so we could reach easily for trauma remedies, for sleep remedies, for anxiety remedies, which were provided by Helios Pharmacy. So working in an incredibly intense situation, you know, we can really see the value of combination remedies. So she first started to combine mixes. And this is an important thing to understand about this particular range, and I'll go into a bit more detail on this. But these acidity mix, calcium mix, calming mix, climacteric menopause mix, basically another word for menopause, were amongst some of her early combination remedies. So you'll see your polycrests in these, and you might see as we go on one or two remedies that you're curious about in terms of what's elements of the combination remedies. So 1997. She went off to teach homeopathy, and the Shivananda Healing Center was founded. And in 1979, they went to India. So again, busy clinics, a lot of traveling, and they taught from the ashram at Rishikesh and opened many clinics. There are 35 clinics throughout India today. So in 1980, a healing center was opened in Bangalore, and this is when she started to write her books. So there are 5 books and very in-depth information. These are available, and I give some sources at the end for supplies. And then in 1986, so a long time, you know, in India, 11 years, they returned to South Africa and founded the Soham Sanctuary. And although they traveled back and forth to India many times. So these are clinics across continents. with a huge wealth of knowledge that comes into this particular range of remedies. So the mixtures, on prescribing the mixtures for a period of time, they will often give rise to a single remedy picture. And I would say, as I said at the beginning, I often use this type of remedy for opening complex cases. And I'm always looking for the simillimum. I'm always looking for whatever the remedy is that walks in, but recognize that when Lycopodium walks in or Natmio walks in, if I give those remedies immediately, I'm likely to get an aggravation. And I'm not a fan of aggravations. I understand healing crisis. I understand the healing journey. I've had a few fair shares of them myself, but it can feel like an infliction on a patient. It can lose me clients. You know, that skin rash that bursts out from a badly placed sulfur, for instance, has lost me a few patients. So that's okay. Take it in our stride. But I tend to start with the complex and move in. And so watch out for, you're looking out for the simillimum, you're looking out for that single remedy. And many times I'll prescribe something like injury mix, we'll get relief, and then I'll go on to something like Ruta in order to really heal whatever the issue is. So she then started to put together the organ remedies. The OM is the abbreviation. And the organ remedies are pretty much all sarcodes. So these are sarcodes in combination for specific organs. So you'll see things like heart, OM7, or liver gallbladder, OM17, or kidney, OM16. And they are all in 30 C. I think I'm right in saying that. There's about 250 remedies. So I'd have to double check that, but they're pretty much all in 30C. And what she used was the Malcolm Ray cards. And that means that she was using a radionics machine, the Malcolm Ray radionics machine. I'll talk a little bit about radionics in a minute, to make these organ remedies. And then they found that they were often giving the mixtures, the polycrest mixtures, and the organ remedies together. So they created the balances, and the balances tend to be in a 50M. Now, it's been said that 50Ms are actually, in terms of their energy, quite close to 30Cs. So it was really quite something for me when I first started to prescribe 50Ms in combination. So I hope there aren't too many single remedy people in the audience who are rolling their eyes, which I certainly did at the beginning. So it took me time. And I remember once going to Robert Davidson. I was about 42, and he was my homeopath at the time. And I said to him, I was feeling very out of balance. I was feeling very off kilter, almost dizzy walking down the street, not quite sure what was going on. It was actually the beginnings of menopause. It was perimenopause, but didn't know that at the time. I don't think he knew that at the time. I'm not sure. And he gave me what is called female balance, BR16 50M. Totally sorted me out. And I went back to see him and I said, that remedy was amazing for me. What did you give me? And he said, oh, it was one of the Narayanis. And I said, well, which one? And he said, oh, and he went to his notes and he hadn't written down which one it was. It's a good note to you to write down which remedy. I write down everything, all my acutes, I write down everything, because I know if I don't, I'm going to get called on that. And so he said, oh yeah, it's one of the Narayanis. He said it was the 50M. So at least I could go and find out what it was as a remedy. And of course, I've prescribed that many times since. But there are many female balance remedies, or female hormonal balance remedies, I should say. It's about 6, I think, or possibly 7 in the range. So at their clinics, they had 3 prescribers and 1 compounder for around 200 patients. So if you can imagine that in a day, you're going to need something that you're going to be able to reach for quite easily. And not long before she died, she created the Soam mixtures, the 41 specials. And these are really quite incredible when you first look at them. Even now I can read the ingredients and my mind boggles. So why? You know, this box of remedies all in one box, over 200 combination remedies. time savers in acute cases, openers for complex cases, easy for patients to use for acutes, access to the sarcodes, great for busy prescribers, and what I call a kit for life. If I was ever on desert island discs, I think my caseload of Narayani Remedies would be what I'd be taking with me. So just to summarize, before we have a break for some questions, the mixes, polycrest combinations, the sarcode combinations, the organo mixtures, rather, the OM is the prefix. So these are the prefix: mix and then a number, OM and then a number, the balance remedies and the specials remedies. And beyond these originals, there are now some other ranges that are available. I haven't used these yet. I'm not there yet. So I can't answer questions on these, but if anyone wants to share, please do, especially if you've got a case or story. But these are available. And as I said, I'll put the suppliers at the end, so you can ask about those. And does a mix evolve? So when I was at college and Robert was teaching us cancer cases, he shared this combination for pain, endgame pain. It was for a bone case that he was describing. And I don't know if this is a Thomas Morn original or came out of that group of prescribers, but black opal, opium and syphilinum in a 10M was used for extreme bone pain in a grade 4, stage 4 cancer case, bone cancer case, used to great effect. So later on, when we were introduced to the Narayani Remedies, saw something similar where aconite is prescribed with the drug in potency. So you'll see a few drugs in potency used in the Narayani range. There's only a few, but they are there. And then here's just to give you a little idea of the difference between a mix with some of our polycrest remedies, but then you'll see spinal integrity. That will have been made either on the Malcolm Ray or the Tansley RADIONICS machines. So where you see something like that in the book, you might see muscle written. That will be a sarcode made made on the RADIONICS machine using the cards for the Malcolm Ray or Tansley machines. And compare that with a special. So the mix is polycrests and a sarcode, and then it's kind of beyond a sarcode, really, spinal integrity. It sounds intentional. And compare that with the pain spec, which is a combination of several mixes. So back pain mix, cramps mix, gout mix, sciatic mix, spasm, trigeminal, etc. So you can get really complex with these, but would be a great handbag remedy, for instance, for somebody who suffers pain or just something to go away to travel with. And I'm just going to say one last thing before we do some questions. Always read the label. So question, as I said before, what's in there? Why is that? This was actually a question that somebody sent in before. What's the difference between the connective tissue remedy and the supportive tissue remedy? It's really in the ingredients. So you'll see in the supportive tissue, OM, it's a sarcode, 30C. You'll see cartilage, ligaments, muscles, tendons. So you might be using this more for specific damage, regeneration in those areas, whereas connective tissue, collagen is much broader. And then there are often suggestions in the book, and I really like this, to use a remedy in combination with others. So go and read those others and see why those might be used in combination. And they suggest in this instance that the liver gallbladder, don't spell that one right, I need to correct that one, liver gallbladder OM17, use that in combination with supportive tissue, because the liver gallbladder meridian looks after connective tissue or governs connective tissue. So some good indications to use remedies in combination. So I'll just exit the screen for a few minutes and we'll do some questions. Vicky, what have you got for
There's
me?
a few questions there. So Nikki asks, does the code also apply to Solace machines?
Very good question. Yeah, the codes are exactly the same for the McGurk and the Sulis machines, and I will talk about radionics in a minute. Yeah, great.
And Susan asks, are the Energetix available in the UK? Because the phone numbers look like they might be non-UK.
Yes, they are a New Zealand company. So yeah, well spotted. But they are. I checked. I've put a link in at the end. So yeah, they're great. I love the Energetix.
And Mega asks, how often are they prescribed for dosages? And that was right. That just came in right at the end when you were talking before you.
With the Narayanis, how often are they prescribed? If that's in relation to the Narayanis, what I would do is read the book. So I'll just show you this because I'm back on screen. Very tattered version of this is a therapeutic index that Robert Davidson created, because the 5 books of the Narayanis are difficult to use in practice. You need something that's smaller. And Nimisha, who's put links in at the end of where to get these, she sells a version of this book that she's printed. When you look into it, you'll see it will give you dosage. So I generally stick to the dosages in the book. Do check. Occasionally they usually say 1 pill 3 times a day. They do change the dosages at times, but, and I'm just going to say this, occasionally, I can't see one at the moment, but occasionally they'll say 2 pills 3 times a day. A common thing for me to do when I'm prescribing for a weak or under-functioning organ would be to start 3 times a day for a couple of weeks, and then reduce the dosage to twice a day for 2 more weeks, and then reduce the dosage to once a day as the patient's getting better, but isn't quite ready to let go of the remedy. And I would say that's quite a common thing for me to do. I may have somebody even on a single remedy like, Natmia LM1, they're doing well. We've got some whereby I just have a sense they're not quite ready to leave that remedy yet. Might go on to prescribing some other remedies and indicated remedies, but just leave that LM1 in there a couple of times a week, So I think we get very guided by potency. The more we work with homeopathy prescribing remedies, we also work in very different parts of the country, very different parts of the world. When I taught down in at Southern College, which is in the middle, at that time was in the middle of this beautiful estate, Salomon's estate in Kent. And it was absolutely stunning. I taught 4 times in that year. So I taught in the spring and all the flowers and birds were there. It was beautiful. Taught in the summer, it was the hottest day of the year. We went and sat by the lake in the lunch break. Taught in the autumn, it was the autumn season. Taught in the winter, and it was snow. It was in the depths. I didn't even know if I was going to get there, but managed to get there for a snowy weekend. So I just had this wonderful kind of 4-part experience of Kent, basically. I live in busy North London. When Hilary Dorian worked at the same clinic as me in Highbury, she said, "Oh my goodness, it's so hectic up here. I feel like I need to throw remedies at people as they run by." So we need to contextualize this. Who are we as a prescriber, and where are we prescribing, and who are we prescribing for? So generally with these, as I say, I stick to what it says in the book. But I recognize that I prescribe far more frequently, 3 times a day, than many of my contemporaries, and certainly than many of our predecessors. And I'm sure I'm saying the same as a lot of you are in terms of practice. Any other questions, Vicky?
Yeah, a couple more came in. Was that, so someone's asked the title of the biotherapeutic book, but was that the one you just held up? So you may have answered that.
No, this is no, I was struggling to remember where I got this from. I think it was the people, it could have been New Vistas. I will look it up and I'll send it out in the email. I mean, it is really dense. It came in a practitioner pack from somebody, and I need to find, I think I know who it was, and I need to find out. So I applied for, practitioner registration, and it came with them. So I'll try and find out, recall, it was quite a few years ago, recall where that was, but I was thinking of that. So yeah.
2 more. Susan asks, I'm never sure how long to prescribe these Narayani combinations for.
They were designed originally, well, they weren't all designed in their entirety to do this, but the idea with the Indian clinics, there's a lot of traveling, India's a vast subcontinent, was that people would be left with a remedy like cataract mix, for instance, cataract mix or acidity mix, and they would be given enough of that, so they were working with blindness, things that we don't see because we get to the hospital and get prescribed for or have surgery for before that actually ever happens. So with the Narayani remedies, visiting villages, coming across, degenerative things. So a lot of eye remedies. There's I'll go into these when I do full-length Narayani webinars or masterclasses, but there are, I think it's around 8 remedies that cover eye conditions, degeneration of the eyes, degeneration of the vision. So the idea was that you'd be left with a remedy for 3 months, 3 times a day for 3 months. So you'd need a big bottle of pills to take until the prescribers came back to review how the case was. So review, as with anything, after give remedies for a month, see what happens. If you feel a bit doubtful, just ask for the client to check in with you after 2 weeks, and just then say, yep, okay, you can ease off that now or stop the remedy. So I might do what I'm thinking of doing. So what we've got coming up next week and the week after, for those of you that want to go on and study more of the Narayani remedies, is I'm going to do 2 masterclasses. So it's a series, and because you've signed up for this, you get an early bird access, so early bird discount. And I'm going to ask Vicky to pop that booking in the chat box for you, the booking link, and I'll post it out afterwards. So that's open until 6 o'clock tomorrow, for you to take advantage of an early bird discount on those. So it's 2 masterclasses. And then if there's demand beyond that and people are interested, then I can create a learning space for you to come to and say, look, I've started to use these now and I've got lots of questions. So let's see how we go with masterclass for that. What was the other question? I think you said one more.
There's 2 more now. Do you ever make up your own combination remedies? If so, do you ever mix different potencies in the same combination?
I'm going to say yes to both of those questions. First one, I'm going to show you my most commonly used therapeutic combinations. I'll do that before we finish. So I'm just, the next bit of this is to look a little bit at radionics and then at combinations that I use again and again. So I have a document called Combinations I Use Again and Again. And that's the sort of latter part of this. I'll go into a few more as well that I realized I use. And yes, I do, much to the consternation of the pharmacists at Ainsworth's. There's a few raised eyebrows when I pop upstairs and say, oh, can you put together tuberculinum 30 and 200C, really? Because it just feels right, that I don't, 100C never resonates for me, but to put together those 2. I actually, and another thing about combining potencies of the same remedy is that I might start someone on a 30C and I want to see more around the action of that remedy, but recognize that going up to a 200C right now doesn't feel quite right. So I might put the 2 together. I just made up a remedy today for somebody, which was tuberculinum 1M, serinum 200, sulfur 30, thuya 30, and yellow 30. So quite a mix there for somebody who's always been very classically prescribed for years and years and years and years, 40 years, and essentially has the same issues that she went with at 40, which goes right back to the time in the womb And I just thought, right, need to go a bit deeper here. So she's got those and Australian bushflower essences. So, you know, new prescriber, new prescription. I'm going to see a homeopath myself tomorrow for the first time. I'm new to, this is a homeopath that's new to me. I haven't had a homeopath for a while because Robert Davidson and Janet Snowden are hard acts to follow. I'm quite excited. Don't know what I'm going to get. I think I'm going to get something quite wacky because I know a little bit about the way they prescribe. Might just get a mundane pulsatilla, of course, you know, let's see. Yes, I do both of those. Right, let's go. Save your questions for, we'll do a few questions before we end. So we're going to finish at 8:30. I'm going to screen share and we'll delve into some combinations that I use. And let me go back to where we were. And a little bit about radionics. So many of you will have a radionics machine, and by that I mean a Sulis, and just in the corner of the screen there you'll see the corner of my McGurk machine. So when I graduated in 2000, I got a council tax rebate of £700, and I immediately rushed out and bought my McGurk machine, and it's lasted what beautiful things they are. When I think about all the healing that's gone through that, actually I feel that's quite amazing. So yeah, radionics machines, very interesting. And I've done lots of comparisons myself, as you would, between our pharmacy derived remedies and our radionics derived remedies. And Marcus Fernandez spent a whole year at least, I think, using pharmacy made, you know, medicating potencies in one of his practices and machine made, radionics made remedies in another practice. The only difference that I've ever really come across that was qualitative for me between my machine made remedies, so we're talking radionics here, we're talking about resonance, the science of radionics, between my machine made remedies and my medicating potencies from the pharmacy, as I took the same remedy, and it was Ant Tart 200. I took it in as a machine-made remedy and as a pharmacy-made remedy to a craniosacral practitioner. And she and I were working with a friend of mine's daughter who has chronic asthma. And we were struggling to find an acute remedy for her. And I took in Ant Tart, and it was amazing. So what we do when someone's having craniosacral treatment is to introduce a remedy into their energy field, usually just laying the remedy on their chest or their tummy, or asking them to hold it in their hand. And the girl held the remedy in her hand, and the difference between the two, so she held one, then she held the next one, and the difference between the two from the craniosacral therapist's perception was that the machine-made remedy was less likely to aggravate in the system. And I thought that was interesting. She said that it had the same depth and pitch, but it felt like it was easier for the system to accept. Now, I'm not saying that is the case with all of them. It was just an interesting observation. And the girl was amazing. Those of you that know Ant Tart well, she said, oh, I can really feel this. She was very tuned in. She's like, I can really feel this in my chest. She said, it feels like velvet in my chest. And those of you that know Ant Tart will know it has a velvety sensation in the chest. I was knocked sideways. It was amazing. So word on radionics. Radionics really from around as early as the 1930s were being experimented with. So you'll know about Hulda Clark and the healing frequencies. Malcolm Ray worked with radionics machine or program that he developed that used punch cards. So it doesn't use the codes that we use on our McGurk and our Sulis machines. They use punch cards. And some of these machines use a magnetic coil as well. So some of them, the Sulis and the McGurk, are electronically driven. So you'll either have a battery or it will plug into the wall. David Tansley as well. He was a chiropractor who came into using radionics. And so it was the Ray and the Tansley machines that Narayani used. And John de Monte worked with Thomas Morn. So these were our two eminent homeopaths who really changed the course of homeopathy in the UK and kind of brought homeopathy out of the dark ages and into a very contemporary way of prescribing. So I mentioned that pain combination remedy that Robert used with black opal in it, opium and syphilinum, and that may well have come out of the Thomas Morn, John de Monte school. So these are early adopters of radionics. And so magnetogeometry was developed by Malcolm Ray. And there were several people in this group, and you may know some of these names, George de la Warre. And if you, there are some good histories of this actually online, and do have a search if you're interested in it. So these instruments code the vibrational quality of a selected substance in terms of a chain of numbers. So sometimes these were dowsed and distinct reactions in relation to the Earth's magnetic field. So absolutely fascinating. There's lots of books on this you can find. And it was Tansley that developed the two-well simulator, which is really what our Sulis and my McGurk are based on. The McGurks are no longer available, unfortunately. Bill McGurk died a few years ago, and Sulis is what we tend to use in the UK. I'm not sure about other countries for radionics machines. They're available, but there may be, or there are other radionics machines around. I don't know what's predominantly used in other countries. So I've mentioned all of these, and those of you that have worked with the Travelling Homeopaths what are they called? Collective, I think, Travelling Homeopaths Collective. They have a remedy making machine that they take with them. So amazing portable device with some codes to make remedies. And you can, those of you that don't already use them, you pop what it is that you want to have remedies made onto it. So pills or maybe a solution of water and brandy in the make well, which is usually the right hand well, the make well, and then zap it with the code and that changes the vibrational frequency. So radionics is all about resonance. Resonance I describe to my clients as a little bit like when we ask questions about, do you like coffee? Do you dislike coffee, or does coffee aggravate? Do you like oysters? Do you dislike oysters, or do oysters aggravate? All of those, the answers to those questions will have some kind of resonance. So you either resonate with something or you don't, you know, and it's very interesting, the science of resonance. So and resonance and radionics. So let's get into some combinations that I use again and again, and then we'll do a few more questions. So this is a combination that a client brought to me. She was, she had nausea in pregnancy, and she said, "Oh, I've been using this combination. Is it okay to take?" And it was a German combination, and I've used it ever since. She probably, her boys are now 16 and 14. So I think it was when she was pregnant with her first. So I've been using this combination for a long time to allay simple nausea, heartburn, indigestion, etc. Really nice combination. Another German one that introduced me to some remedies that I didn't know, Boldo and Cypripedium pubescens, is Difos. And it's a teething combination. So that Chamomilla MT technically is mother tincture. To be honest, I make it up with a 1X because I don't have the mother tincture, and I don't always want to give a liquid remedy. If it was mother tincture, I'd have to give it as a liquid remedy. So I make this up in X potencies. Really great. So this is a combination that I would give couple of times a day for babies who are having difficulty teething. Some of you might use the teething tissue salt combination. I think I've got that in a slide a little bit later for you. It should say calc carb, by the way. It doesn't matter how many times you look at PowerPoint. I'm just going to make a little note to correct those for future reference, but that should say calc carb 8x. And then the sleep combination. Now standard, that's a Coffea 30 I would put into that. I have used this combination in 6x's, and I've used the sleep combination in 30x's as well. I think my combination, my version of it that I have in medicating potency is actually 30x. But a very useful combination that I've used for many years for clients, and some clients, this is all they've ever come to me because they just not really got into homeopathy beyond, can I have that sleep remedy again? Can I have that teething remedy for my baby again? So I think the diphos remedy and single chamomillas saw the school caretaker at my kid's school through 5 babies. He never asked me for any other homeopathy then. Could I have another bottle of chamomilla, and could I have another bottle of that teething tissue salt remedy, please, for baby number 3, 4, and 5. So so sleep combo is very useful, and I added K-Life Phos to it latterly because what I see now is huge depletion of potassium and phosphorus as minerals, because we're so deficient in magnesium. So anybody who's having problems falling asleep probably needs to increase magnesium in their life. And it may be that a sleep combo is more effective with K-Life Phos in it, because magnesium helps us draw up calcium, potassium, and phosphorus. And just actually as an aside, I've found calc carb, so my most commonly prescribed remedies right now in March 2021 are calc carb for worries and Thuya. Thuya is proving to be very, very useful for vaccine reaction, as we know, and it's proving to be a very good remedy for people with COVID right now. So any long COVID cases of mine have pretty much all had Thuya. Quite a few of them have had Serinum. I would say those have been, interestingly, my single most used nosodes throughout this. So if you've got a sticky COVID case, long COVID, those are worth putting in or seeing if they're indicated. So any of these skin cases, that type of thing. And what else was I going to say? Early on, I was using Syphilinum, but much less so now, which is interesting. So as the virus has progressed, I've used much more Serinum and Thuya. So this is a skin-sun combo that Ellen Kramer put together. And I've used this several times for people who get sunburnt, have got sunburn, or have skin which doesn't do very well in the sun. And I've put the codes in because you may or may not have codes for these vitamins in your code books. So Sol and Belladonna, obviously we know, but she's put in some skin repair remedies here. So your main vitamins for repairing the skin, if the skin is damaged, are A, C, and E. So she's popped them in here. Vitamin D3 for what we're hoping sunshine is going to bring into the body. Very interesting. And then the Australian bushflower essence, Mulla Mulla, which is for getting burnt, getting too close to the heat, etc. And then astaxanthin. I love astaxanthin as a supplement to anyway. It's a gatekeeper antioxidant, and by that I mean I call it the bouncer. Actually, I call it, amongst all the antioxidants, I call astaxanthin the bouncer. It's at the door preventing the damage, whereas most of the other antioxidants are the cleaners. They go in after the damage and do the cleanup operation. So we're talking things like serapeptase or beta carotenes, etc. So astaxanthin could be used instead of Astacus fluviatilis, which is one of our homeopathic remedies, but has this protective red element in it for the skin. Collagen. I've not found a code for collagen, and I have what we call the restricted section codes, which Robert Davidson had in his keeping, and there's no collagen in there. So I usually copy over the Narayani connective tissue combination into this. You can use that, although I have got a little medicating potency of collagen, so you could get that from the pharmacy. Thyroid support. There is a thyroid support around. I'm not quite sure of its origin, because it sort of came out of possibly Ellen Kramer, possibly Peter Joyce, the clinics at CPH. And I've seen similar called the Narayani, the extended Narayani range. But I pop hypothalamus in this. I find the hypothalamus is often very out of balance in my thyroid cases. So this is the combination that I've used in 30C and 10Ms for my long-term thyroid regeneration cases. Also, we looked at those lovely Energetix combinations, but I personally have used this one a lot. And you could think about adding or swapping in any of these that I've seen used in the CPH clinic. So calc iodatum, you know, where there's damaged growths, nodules, etc. in the thyroid, i.e. pathologies, you might be looking more at that. Cuprum, you know, cuprum's a phenomenal remedy to have in our pharmacy for hormonal imbalance. So if we've got dysfunction in the glands, we might be looking at copper being out of order in the system. There's some really great information on this on the internet, actually. There's a particular link I have got, which I'll make a note of and I will send to you. Really, really useful. More on copper, actually, while I think about it. I'm going to be doing a 3-part series on metal remedies. So that's stannum, copper, you know, arsenicum, etc. Metal remedies and heavy metals. I'm going to be doing that in April. So if you've got the stamina, metal remedies are all about stamina. If you've got the stamina for a 3-part series with me, come and join me in April to really go in depth on the metal remedies, heavy metal remedies, or heavy metal that we need to clear from the system, and why metal remedies are so incredibly fundamental to us now. I can't stress that enough, because when I wrote that webinar at the end of 2019, it grew as I wrote it, and it grew from a 2-hour webinar to a 4-hour webinar. And then one morning when I was about to present it, I just sat down and created a 3-part webinar, because there was so much information that's fundamental, I think, to our practice as contemporary homeopaths. And that webinar wasn't released because coronavirus happened and we suddenly needed to attend to different things. And since coronavirus has happened, the metal remedies have become even more important to us. And so if that tweaks your interest, keep an eye on me bringing out that webinar series in April. So yeah, copper element, selenium, another metal, might well add this into your thyroid support, because selenium helps with things like hair loss and fertility. This is my jet lag combination. Don't forget, you're going to get the opportunity to watch this again, so you can copy these down. I haven't done a transcript of all of this. There's quite a lot of information, as you can hear, but you can watch again as many times as you want and just flick through to the bits that you want to jot down any information you don't pick up on. So there's some great combination remedies in the pharmacy at Ainsworth's. Jet lag 5 is one of them, and I get them to add the radium bromide to help us deal with the radiation exposure that we go through traveling through the airport and on the plane itself. So someone asked about, you know, repetition. I just say every 4 hours during long haul or before and after short haul, you know, so and take a good antioxidant. My insect bite combination is the top one here for remedies from pretty much from our first aid kit. Caladium is not in the first aid kits, but it's a very good remedy for itchy bites. And this is what I use. And I find that people have far less reaction. And usually what I say is take 4 times a day, or when bites are itchy. And what I find with a lot of these combination remedies is that with time, people need to use them much less. So, you know, now I barely need to take one of these. I might take a few, it depends. But, you know, times gone past, I would have taken them quite a lot. Now, take them a couple of times and usually the bites go down. Add apis mel, obviously, for swollen bites. And then you've got things like the Narayani Stings and Bites mix, phenomenal combination. When my kids got infected bites when we were in the Caribbean, pyrogen and gunpowder was what cleared the infection. You know, so we may need to go deep depending on where we are. Infected bites, I've often used War Mix, which is one of the Narayani combinations. And that, when you look into what it's got in it, you know, you've got penicillinum, you've got belladonna, our first inflammatory state remedy. We've got gunpowder for clearing up infection. We've got cortisone. You know, when we go into this high alert state, we're going to be pumping out cortisone as part of our immune system response. So that's there in the remedy. And K-Life-Phos, you know, one of our number one remedies, often forgotten for the first stage of something. You know, so K-Life-Phos you might give at the beginning of the hay fever season. And might find that you don't need to give so much of the hay fever remedies. You might find you don't even need to give the hay fever remedies because you've got in there with K-Life-Phos and this capacity to almost prevent something happening, prevent something taking hold. So a really great support, obviously, for the nervous system, but big support for immune system as well. And then you've got Streptococcus and Staphylococcus in the War Mix. You know, so all those are in War Mix. Phenomenal remedy for any infection, actually, but great for infected bites. And for people who are really bugged by bites, it really drives them nuts and your remedies aren't working. I give Natmure, I think. Usually Natmure is very scared of or very wary of flying insects. And Scorpion's one that's great for super itchy bites aren't responding. So there's some great tips for you. A couple of after the event remedies that I use again and again. Post-vaccine combo. I've been dishing this out for at least 20 years and it works very well. So I've written Staphylococcus aureus in there. That is not what I put in it. It's actually Thuya. So it's terrible when you see typos. So my post-vaccine combo is Arnica, Hypericum, Ledum, and Thuya. And post-exercise combo, either in 30 or 200C, is our ARR. I use that a lot, actually, and a lot of people get some good responses out of that. So yeah, huge correction there, which I won't put in now because it means exiting the screen sharing. But Thuya, please, in the post-vaccine combo, very useful. And I'm just going to go quickly through these and we'll do a couple more questions. These are the tissue salt combinations which are readily available and some really great opportunities here to prescribe a combination level. And a few more. I think in there we have the teething one. Just scrolling through this one. No, usually with teething, I am using the Fossy ones. So NatFos for that change in the acid balance, MagFos, for great remedy for the neuralgic pain, CalcFos to support the growth that's actually going on, perhaps silica, particularly if the back teeth are involved. So, you know, you can put these together in combination yourself, but these are pretty standard combinations that you can find in the pharmacy. So Schussler has these in combination, for instance, New Era. Tissue salts and pregnancy. Some of you will know these, and these are specifically put together for the different stages of pregnancy. So again, I have these as documents. I can send these out in an email to you. So FGH, let's just put tissue salts down and pregnancy. So I would often give this as a PDF, a single page document to a pregnant client, and then she's got how to take these throughout the pregnancy. And I've many mums who've only taken these throughout pregnancy. And the benchmark is when in a second pregnancy, they have a much easier time. And they say, I want those again for the third pregnancy. So great combinations, and you use the same combination for the 2nd and the 6th months, the 3rd and the 7th, the 4th and the 8th, the 5th and the 9th. And I generally say to take these twice a day, AM and PM, but to increase that to 3 times a day or even 4 times a day if energy is low and that's required. These days, think about adding K-Life to the program as a nervous system tonic for mum and baby, and calc-phos, because we're so magnesium deficient. And as I said, with magnesium deficiency, we don't draw up calcium, potassium, and phosphorus as efficiently as we should do. So think about why you might be adding in certain things. So you'll notice when you look at these that calc-phos isn't in the mix at all. K-Life isn't in the mix at all. So think about adding those if needed. And just going to flip quickly through these. These are some of the suppliers. As I've said, I'll send you out a document on these. And if you're watching again, you can easily find these. These are the Narayani Remedies suppliers. You can get them in the pharmacies. You'll find that Ainsworth's only do them in pilule form. Helios do them in liquid form. And the Narayani Remedies company, I think just do them in liquid, but you'd need to check for that. And they have a lot of books and resources. Hardware supplies. Here's a link for the Sulius RADIONICS, and also a couple of useful ports of call for glass and plastic bottles. I tend to go to Freeman Harding's and order loads in one go because it's just such great value. But for smaller quantities, Homeopathic Supply Company is good. And that is me, and we'll just stop the share there and just come back. Any questions, Vicky?
Yeah, there's a few came through. So going back to the sleep combo, Hannah asked, please repeat the dosage for the sleep combo.
Good, I didn't actually say that. I usually say with sleep combo to take one as you're getting ready for bed and another as you go to bed. And then if you wake at night, so I'm particularly thinking of menopausal women here, if you wake at night, take another one. You know, and you can take it every half hour if you're wakeful at night. But just be creative with that. I usually find that a couple of doses before bedtime is what's needed. And as I've said, particularly with the sleep combination and the insect bite combos, I find people need less of them over time. So you know, listen into what your client needs.
And there's another on the same subject. Is Karen asks, is that Valeriana in the sleep combo?
Yes. Did I spell it wrong? No, or is Valeriana in that one? I'd have to look back, actually.
And then Fiona asks, have you used them on children? Sleep combo for kids.
Sleep combo on children. Yes, definitely. Probably just start with the X's, actually, the low, really low strength, and see how you get on. But absolutely fine to use with children.
Now I think this one is to do with the skin.
The skin combo is complex.
Yeah, so someone said all in liquid ?
Either any of these you can make. I mean, the same with any remedies, really. Make them on pilules or liquids, depending on what your client needs, you know, and prefers. So yeah, I don't have a problem with either.
And Lucy asked, do you recommend any combos for teeth cavities and maintenance?
Have a think about adding nat floor. So there are, yes, I mean, your main remedies are calc floor for the covering of the teeth, calc-phos for the inside of the teeth, but have a look at the remedy Natrum Floricum. That could be very good. And actually that's something that I probably would then dive into the repertory for as well. But nat floor, useful remedy.
And then Susan asked, you mentioned about Ainsworth making up some of the combos. Do you use a mix, i.e. of pharmacy made and radionic combos?
Personally, yes. I have quite a big medicating potency pharmacy, and I don't have a problem putting together both medicating potencies and machine-made ones, if that's what that requires.
Megha mentions we give 5-FOS in teething in India.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, nice. Very nice. Yeah, the 5 phosphases, same as the 5 calcs for bone strengths, that can be useful. So just to come on to the Narayanis, it's a vast topic, which is why I'm doing 2 masterclasses. I will share a lot more on supporting bones and teeth in the Narayani webinars. And obviously when you get these, you have access to the recordings. So you can, think of them as a space where you've got lots of information. And as I say, if there's demand beyond those, then we can look at some sort of working space. But for things like bones and teeth, I use the Narayanis a lot.
And there's just 2 more on the tissue salts. So Susan asks, how long would you prescribe the tissue salt combos for? And then Karen asked, do you make the tissue salt remedies up yourself?
I do. I have all 12 tissue salts. I've also got a really lovely one in a 3X, which comes from America, called Bioplasm. That I think is made by Highlands. It's really worth getting a bottle of that. It comes in as a liquid. It's a really lovely, I don't know, it's just got a great energy about it. It's almost plant-like. I know they're minerals, but that's Bioplasm in a 3X. I've got 9Xs, 6Xs, 12Xs, a couple of 3Xs, single remedies. And yeah, I love making up the tissue salts myself. I don't know, it's really resonant for me.
There's one last question from Hannah. What are in the 5-FOS?
5-FOS would be ferrum phos, calc phos, nat phos, mag phos, and what's the other one? I swear your mind goes blank at the end of talking for an hour and a half. Calc phos, ferrum phos. Someone's got to write it in there because someone just.
Califos.
Califos, yay. So, is bioplasm not the same as the 12 tissue salts? Yes, it is. So bioplasm is the 12 tissue salts, but they're in 3X. You can get the 12 tissue salts in 3X, 6X, you can get them made up in 9X. If you go to Ainsworth's, I think the lowest they'll do is 12X, unless you want the trip tablets. We just get into a whole conversation with pharmacists about what they will and won't make remedies on. One last mention about the 12 tissue salts is in the Narayani range, you've got a remedy called CB12, CB mix 12, 6X. That is the 12 tissue salts in combination. So CB12, mix 12, 6X. And that's very useful.
That's it. That's all the questions there.
Fantastic. Good. So we've got the link there. If you do want to book for the Narayanis, come and join me next Thursday and the Thursday afterwards. Those also will be being recorded. And thank you so much for coming tonight. It's really great to have you all here. And I'm just going to stop